Well, we are back. We're back in for lab number. What are we on? 11? I believe we're in lab number 11, and that's going to get us into the distributed firewall. Now, what are we working with here? Well, let's pull up the diagram for lab number 11. And at this point, we've got this infrastructure built, right? We've got this tier 1 gateway out to the physical kind of built up. We've got our segments created. We've got our virtual machines attached to our segments. So what we're going to do here is we're going to work with tags for grouping, and we're going to configure up the distributed firewall. So that's what we have highlighted here in the diagram. So how do we get started with this? Well, we first start with preparing for the lab, right? So we're going to prepare, we're going to test, we're going to build out the tags and the groups, and build the policies and rules, and then we're going to test again, right? And then we're going to get ready for the next lab. So, we really need to make sure we have NSX Manager open for this lab, and that's what we see right here. I'm still here in NSX Manager. And then we're going to test some connectivity. So let's come back over here to MT Putty. And we want to go ahead and instead of opening a virtual machine console, let's use SSH to get into SA Web 01. And we want to go ahead and accept that. There we are, root at SA Web 01. We are logged in. Let's check out, can we get to Web 02? All right, that's 172.16.10.12. So can we get to Web 02? We can get to Web 02. Now, how about to App 01? That's 172.16.20.11. And again, here you can just up arrow and backspace out what you want. We're going to try Web or DB01 here. And there we have it. Look at that. Three different servers that we can get to from Web 01. Now, what else are we going to try? Well, there's an HTTPS application running on SA App 01. So we're going to try and use the curl command. Right, and the -K just tells us to ignore certificate challenges. Right, we're using self-signed certificates. So HTTPS 172, not 271, 172 dot 16.20.11 /CGI dash bin /app dot py. Right? This is supposed to work. And it does not because I didn't get the entire command line right. We're not listening on port 443. We're listening on port 8443. So I need to make sure that goes in. And that's a much, much more appropriate response. That's kind of what we want to see. We see some of these tables that we saw in our 3-tier application. Right? We want to do something similar and see if we can get a connection a connection from App 01 to Database 01. So let's go ahead and open up SA App 01. There we go. Let's accept that certificate there. And we want to use curl again. We're not going to use the -K because we're not using HTTPS. 172.16.30.11. That's our DB server on port 3306 /CGI-bin /data.pi. And so there we go. We're pulling data. We're able to request data from SADB01. So we've got that, right? All of the servers in my 3-tier application are functioning. Now we're going to come back to a browser and open up a browser tab, and let's go ahead and open up our 3-tier app. And just like before, we have all kinds of entries, and our 3-tier application is working. So there's our test, right? There's our test that says that we have all the connectivity we need. We know what things should behave like. So let's secure this. I'm going to start by coming into inventory and coming down here to tags. And we want to add a couple of tags. We're going to name this tag web, and the scope we're going to define as 3-tier. And we want to assign this to some virtual machines. So what virtual machines do we want? Well, how about we filter by the term web, right? That way we don't have to scroll through everything. I can just find my 3 web servers and select them so that we can apply this tag, right, this web tag, to all 3 of those virtual machines, right? So there we go. Tag updated successfully. Very interesting how it says nothing found. There it goes, just a quick refresh. We'll do the same thing for our app servers. So the tag name will be app, our scope will be 3-tier, and we will set virtual machines. And there's SA app 01, it's right up there at the top. We'll go ahead and just apply that. And then we want to save this, and we'll add one more tag. And the app tag will show up in a second, I'm certain. DB, oops, not just D, DB, 3-tier, and we're going to go ahead and apply this to the SADB01 virtual machine. So let's save, and there we go, app web DB. DB is still pending. What happens when we hit refresh? There it goes. Everything is successful. That's what we want to see. That is exactly what we want to see. Now we want to create some groups. So here in the inventory navigation, let's come up here to groups, and let's add a group for our web servers. So what are we going to do? We're going to set our members, and we're going to add criterion. We're going to say, well, the virtual machine tag equals, and we'll just read the tags so that you don't have to figure it out. We just add the web tag. What we're doing here is creating a group that says include the virtual machine in this group if it has the web tag. So we create that. I can come over here and I can click View Members, and look at that. SA Web 01, SA Web 02, SA Web 03 Victim. That tells me that the group is working exactly as I intended to. So we'll go ahead and repeat this process. How about an app servers? And we'll go ahead and set this using the criterion tag equals app. Save this one. View members just to be sure. SA app 01. Perfect. We will add another one for DB. Set. Add criterion tag scope equals DB. And while we have proven that this should be good, we will see that there's SADB01. Now, we want to create one more group. One more group. We're going to create a group that includes all of the workloads in our 3-tier application. So we're going to set our compute members, and instead of doing membership criteria here, we're going to create a slightly more static group. We're going to come in here under members and say if it's a member of app server, or a member of DB server, or a member of the web server group, we will go ahead and use or include that virtual machine. So we'll save that. And if we look at our 3-tier group, the web, app, and DB servers should all be here. And there they are. Web, 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 oops, app, and DB. So 3 web servers, an app server, and a database server. That is nesting groups. That's what we're doing there, nesting groups. Once we've got our groups set up, now we can go to the Security tab and start building our distributed firewall rules. So let's come down here under Policy Management to Distributed Firewall and start looking around. So we're going to run around and do our work here in the application category. And we need to add a policy. Notice that policy came in above the default policy. So we're going to call this external access policy. And leave that applied to the distributed firewall. And we want to add a rule. So let's come in here to our context menu, the 3 vertical ellipses, and click Add Rule. Call this rule Allow External Web Traffic. My sources are going to be any. Right? We're gonna do any source. For my destinations, let's scroll down here and find my web servers. Service, we want to do HTTPS. I'm not going to scroll down and find HTTPS, but I can't find it searching for HTTPS. I need 2 T's. So let's do that. There's my HTTPS, TCP destination 443. That's what I'm looking for. So we've got our service set for HTTPS. We're not doing a context profile here. We're going to go ahead and in this case apply to the web servers. So we need to change that from the distributed firewall. I don't need this deployed everywhere. Right? So only my web servers will get this. And we do want to allow this traffic. We do want to allow this traffic. So there's my external access policy. Now let's do this and add a policy below, right? So that now I have a new policy below my external access. So we'll process the external access policy on the web servers, and then we'll come in and look at the next one. So what is this? Well, this is going to be 3-tier policy. So this will be my entire 3-tier microsegmentation. So we're going to go ahead and come in here and we'll add 3 rules. So let's go ahead and just add these all right now so that we can create them and configure them in the order that we are looking for. So first rule, let's do an allow web traffic. Right, and that's going to come from the web server group. It's going to go to the app server group. And we're going to change the service. Now, we don't have necessarily a TCP 8443 service anywhere. So here we're just going to do a raw port and protocol mapping. And we're going to add a service entry. And we want to do TCP destination port 8443. Right? So I don't have to use the service objects if I don't want, right? I can. And certainly it's preferable. I can read HTTPS a lot better than I can read TCP destination whatever it is, right? Because now I've got to expand that out or look at it. But this gives me the flexibility to not have to build a custom service object. So we're using TCP 8443 here. We want to apply this rule not just to the web servers, but also to the app servers. And we want to apply it to both because what's the source and what's the destination, right? The web server and the app server. Those are the 2 places that I want this rule to be applied. The source and destinations that I want to allow that traffic from. So we'll go ahead and allow that traffic and send that or apply that rather to both. Now we're going to do another rule, right? Remember, we created 3 rules here. So allow traffic to the database, and we're going to source this traffic from the app server. And there we go. There's the apply. We're going to destine this traffic to the database server. And we're going to get into, there's my service, and we're going to search for MySQL because I don't want to look through myself. And we'll go ahead and apply that. And we want to apply this not just to the distributed firewall, but to app servers and DB servers. Because those are the only places it makes sense to program in this rule, because it's just approaching the DB server from the app server. We're going to do a third rule here, reject all other traffic. And so, reject all other traffic between the different systems. So we're going to say if, for anything else, if the source is in the 3-tier application and the destination is in the 3-tier application, and we're any service, any context profile, or no context profile. Let's go ahead and apply this to the 3-tier group. And what do we want to do? Do we want to drop or reject? I think we're going to reject. I think that's all right. And so now we'll go ahead and publish those firewall rules. So here we see they're in progress. There we go. Successfully programmed into the data plane. That's what this success notification means here. Right? It means it was written to each of these transport nodes. So now what are we going to do? Well, let's go back and do some testing. Let's see this work. So we want to find our Web 1 virtual machine. And let's see if we can do some of those pings again. All right, so can I ping Web 2? Oh, no, I can't. I can't do it. How about app 01? I can't get to app 01 either. Can I get to DB01? I cannot. Destination host prohibited. That's that reject action that we just defined. That's that reject all other traffic rule. That's why those aren't getting through. All right. What about my data from app01? Can I use that curl command we used earlier? 8443 CGI bit. That's the one we're looking for. I'm just scrolling up through my history using the up arrow here. So will this work? This works. Why does that work? Well, because we have a rule that says allow traffic from the web servers to the app server on TCP 443, right? If we go back and look at this over here, where's my mouse pointer, right? Destination for TCP 8443 from a web server to a database server. So that matches another rule. That's pretty great. That's pretty great. What about our app01? Remember how we tested app01? We tested pulling data out of the database. Does that still work? Oh, that does still work. Look at that. Look at that. We got there because we're attaching to MySQL to TCP 3306 from SA app 01. And the distributed firewall allows to that. Right? But what about something like SSH, right? What if I'm working on my application and I can't get to the database for some reason? I want to test. I want to see if I can SSH in and do some work to the database and figure out what's happening. But I can't do that now. Again, that's that reject all other traffic rule that we created, that third rule that we created in the 3-tier policy. So the distributed firewall is working exactly as anticipated, exactly as expected so far. And let's go ahead and close this down so we're not that worried about seeing the same thing pop back up. Let's access our 3-tier application again, and the 3-tier app still works. So we tested before. We could do all kinds of stuff. We did some microsegmentation, and everything kind of still functions, but a lot of stuff was stopped. So that's pretty fantastic. That's pretty great stuff. So What do we need to do now? Are we done? Just about, right? We've seen the value of the distributed firewall, I hope. But we have one more thing to do, and we do this because we don't want these rules messing with other stuff we're going to do later on. So I want to find the policies, and we're going to come in here and hit the vertical ellipses next to the policy and disable all the rules for external access policy. And we're going to disable all the rules for 3-tier policy. You can see these little toggles over here on the right. These are now disabled, and we need to publish that. And now we're done. We're back to where we were just a minute ago. So that's the distributed firewall. That's how easy it is to do some really cool firewalling in a short period of time. So we're going to go and start talking about things like the gateway firewall. We'll have a new lab for that coming up soon. We'll see you there.